Hello middle schoolers and welcome back. Today we're looking at lesson 16, continuing our study with eighth notes and now eighth rests. So last time we saw that eighth notes could be shown in two different ways. They could be beamed together in pairs, or they could be separated and they have a flag. Now we also learned that two eighth notes together takes up the amount of time that a quarter note does. So usually this is one beat. We count these by saying one and. That and is part of the quarter note, but we don't say it. It's kind of like, you don't usually count by halves, like half, one, one and a half. It's understood, unless there's a reason that you're showing those halves for something. And that's like now when we've got these eighth notes. Then we would count that. So the eighth notes up here would be one and, or if they're split, it's still counting with that and. Now I want to point out that I draw my eighth notes, or my and sign, a little different than what they're showing here. They do this fancy and like that kind of. I do this. You could just do a plus sign. The important thing to understand is they're all the same, and we count them like we're saying one and, two and, so on. But it doesn't matter which way you draw your and sign, as long as you're doing that, okay? So let's get into eighth rests. Now usually those single eighth notes that we looked at with the flag, they're going to work together with eighth rests. So maybe you want to play on the first half of the beat and rest on the second half, or the other way around. Then you need this eighth rest, and it kind of looks like a funny little 7. You can fit 2 of those eighth rests into a quarter rest. So we'd count them one and. And again, that and is kind of understood that it's within that quarter rest. We just don't say it, okay? If you've got a half rest, those are usually 2 beats. Well, if you can fit 2 eighth rests in every beat, we've got 1 and 2 and. A total of 4 eighth rests can fit into that half rest. So now if we have a whole rest, which is 4 beats usually, or however many is in the measure, a whole rest is the whole measure, but let's just say it's 4/4 time signature. That means we've got 4 beats in the whole rest. Well, 2 eighth rests per beat, 2 times 4, that's a total of 8 eighth rests, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, you also see that drawn out down here. A whole rest could fit 2 half rests, or 4 quarter rests, or 8 eighth rests. All right, so that's the breakdown. Now, once you get into your lesson, I would like you to try this. You're going to practice drawing some of these. Start by tracing the one they give you, and then draw 8 more. So I would go here and draw, whoa, that was not a good one, not at all. Okay, so you're going to draw a total of 8 of those. Now, we've talked about how you tap your foot along with the beat. And I love this drawing that they give us here because this really helps explain it. So when you are tapping your foot, your toe comes down and taps on the ground on the beat, on the number. The number is what we call the beat, okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4. My toe comes down on the beat. Now if I'm talking about the ands, this is where my toe comes up. So it's down, up, down, up, down, up. And off the beat is when it's up on the ands. If you're being steady, it's always going to land that way. Down, up, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. All right, so that's how that works. Those are important terms as we get into more challenging rhythms. Now let's look at the exercises. The first one, you don't actually need to write anything. It just tells you to clap the following rhythm counting aloud. So I would count 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and repeat, and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Remember, we learned that repeat sign means you play it again. Okay, now number 2. You're going to fill in the correct number. So it's looking for a number. So letter A, how many eighth rests equal a whole rest. I'm sorry, a half rest. Well, we learned that a half rest is 2 beats, right? And we can fit 2 eighth rests into every beat. So 2 eighth rests, 2 beats, that's going to be a total of 4 eighth rests, because I can put 2 into each beat. All right. Now number 3. This one should be pretty easy. All you need to do is change the quarter notes to single eighth notes. And how would I change it to a single eighth note? Well, I'm going to add the flag. That wasn't a great flag, but you get the idea. I'm just going to add the flag onto each note. And then it says add eighth rest in between. So there's 2 things. You add the flag and then you put an eighth rest after. And it should look pretty much exactly like number 1. Okay? So you'll finish that one. Number 4. First thing it tells me to do, write the beats. 1 and 2 and the counting under the notes. So 1 and 2 and. Now I wouldn't have to put that and, but I'm going to do it for this one because I think it'll help me. 1 and 2 and I would do that all the way through the exercise. Remember that a quarter note gets all of it, the 2 plus the and, all right? Now, the second part, so I did that part, writing the beats, good. On the lines below it, I'm gonna write whether the eighth rest occurs on or off the beat. So remember, on the beat is the numbers, that's where my toe comes down, and off the beat is the ands, where my toe comes up. So this first one is underneath an and, so that's off. And you'd go through and do all of those. Number 5, this is a tricky one. Complete the measures below by adding only 1 rest. I'm going to highlight that. Only 1 rest per measure. Some of you guys like to just add a whole bunch of different kinds of rest, and it's not always going to be the same kind of rest. You can use quarter rests, half rests, or eighth rests. There won't be any whole rests in this one. So this would be for 1 beat. This one fills 2 beats. And this one is when you only need half of a beat. Now if you look at the directions, I'm adding 1 rest per measure, but I also need to write the beats. I think it's actually easier if I start by writing the beats. So I've got 1 and 2 and, because that's a half note, it gets all beats 1 and 2. The quarter note, we get beat 3, which means I'm missing beat 4. Okay, well, what rest can fill a single beat? The quarter rest can. Okay, I'm also going to do the second measure because this one's kind of tricky. So the quarter note gets 1 and, that's 2 and. Now this is where it's tricky, if it's at the beginning of the measure or the middle of the measure. So I'm going to look ahead here. My measure ends with a quarter note, so I'm going to just figure out that's got to be beat 4. And there's an eighth note right before it, so that's the second half of 3. Okay, which means I'm missing the first half of 3. If I'm only missing part of it, whoop, I just lost it. If I'm only missing part of a beat, like half of a beat, that's going to be my 8th rest, right? Now let's see if I can get my screen back here. There we go. Don't know why it crashed on me. So coming back down here, I was drawing my 8th rest. Okay? Now you're going to want to finish the rest of that example by writing in your counting and then figuring out what kind of rest you need to fill in the beats. If you have any questions on this, it's not due until Wednesday night, so you have a little time. You can bring your questions to our live class on Wednesday. I can help you with it then, or you can send me a question in the meeting space in our team as well. But if you don't understand something, make sure you ask me. Don't just leave it blank, but ask me and we'll help you get it taken care of. All right, So that's all for today. I will see you next time.